on King of the Hill. I feel like historically the Civ has not fared well. Typically because the berry spawns, like there's not many of them, and you have to come pretty far out to secure them. We'll see what works out for him. Especially since, you know, TCs are delayed compared to where they used to be, but that's going to work on both sides. But of course, the benefit that Marine Lord has, other than being able to go, "Ooh, I love my Rus," he's playing the Rus on King of the Hill. A damn good map for them. And he doesn't go straight for the corner. He's going to save that probably for later for a bigger hunting cabin, the High Trade House, I'm thinking. But he's quickly going to set up his initial hunting cabin. I did 23 gold. Oh, the best. That's all right. Mainly, you just want to be able to get those initial extra scouts out so you can escalate your bounty. Apologies, I can't show you the bounty. So I changed the caster mode. You're going to see when the game ends. That's something I like about the new caster system, by the way. It was so depressing knowing when a game was going to finish when I'm casting it. I try and ignore that detail, but every once in a while you glance up, you're like, oh, great, I've ruined it for myself. Don't have to worry about that anymore. It's a beaut. Now, if only they could get that across to us for team games, I would be doing cartwheels. It's like initially are going to be taken out. So let's think about what these players want to do. Avali picking Abbassas. Did he expect Roos here? Maybe we see him wall up and try to contain himself, but realistically, I think like you need second TC on your wood line, probably into Horseman, and you just try to play tempo on the mid map. The Roos players' most likely builds are either going to be Knights or Archers, but even if you think he's going Knights, if you try to rush Spearman, he's going to be able to counter you out pretty hard because there'll be Archers easily added up in a second layer for the Roos. Like, Roos are these 1-2 punches, right? It's always Archers plus Knights. And usually the Knights are just kind of a pseudo front line. The whole point in you building a few Knights is, yeah, you can build Spears instead as a kind of front line to tank, but with Knights, you're able to mobilize to left and right quickly. And you're very tanky. Like, if you compare it to a Horseman, it's pretty cost efficient for the amount of damage mitigation it gets compared to a Horseman. Not to mention the fact that damage it adds in. Like, if you aren't dealing with range units directly and you compare Horsemen and Knights, Knights mathematically are just better. Right? Because their damage is, I think, over double? Yeah, it's over double. And then their health is not quite double, but with the extra melee and ranged armor they get, their damage mitigation means their effective HP is substantially higher. Unless you're up against Spears, in which case it's kind of like it draws it back to neck and neck. That's kind of what makes Knights in Feudal so ridiculously insane when you think about it. It is, of course, a premium investment. I think one of the big things that actually balances Knights early game is their production time. If it wasn't for the fact they take 35 seconds, they'd be absurd. Wait a second. Isn't there a Civ that builds them quicker? Nah, that's fine. French aren't insane right now. Their eco benefits have been kind of crippled. Did they add any new casting changes, Osculating? Not really. Everything's more or less what it was. I still don't... I told them I don't really like the space, should we say, and the descriptions. Like, I think work kills is kind of confusing. It's like, just call it worker kills. Actually, no, work kills isn't that confusing. Vil kills would make more sense, though. And Distrip Val, when I first started like casting on this UI, made like my brain didn't understand. It was very confusing. I get what it is now, but still, I think I explained there was a cool way they could actually do this whole UI element where it would just be a small bar along the bottom with icons. And although it's not going to be clearly apparent at first, this one wasn't clearly apparent at first, at least not to me. We'll see though. Maybe a kind of like modular design where you can choose what stats you show would be pretty cool, but nothing big has been added to the UI. Instead, let's focus on the game because it looks like the tech ups are coming through. Eco Wing about to be completed. And there really are barely any situations in which it's not Eco Wing, right? I think the only exception is Culture Wing when you're playing on water maps so that you can get the emplacements cheaper. That's probably the only time you consider something other than Eco Wing. Kind of sad that we're still at that point with the Abbassas, though. I don't think there's any easy way to change that unless you want to remove fresh foodstuffs, which would be a brutally crippling nerf to this poor Civ. And fresh foodstuffs, of course, is down the way. That is something I'd like to see them change to this UI, by the way, is that you can't see the fresh foodstuff stuff, because when you click on most buildings, you can't see research tabs. It's a bit weird. Early scout raids. Being a little bit of a nuisance, but not really shutting Avali down. However, Avali is going to have to come out of his base soon. He's going to try to do so with the stables. Interesting choice here. Did he sniff anything out? No. So this is going to be a choice made blind. Some people would choose to maybe open up for archers, but logically, the point in going for stables first is that if you don't know what your opponent is doing, although it's a little bit more costly than archers or spearmen, it's less costly if you have the wrong unit type. In that horsemen will be able to run away. Spears and archers come out. They discover they're up against knights or more archers. They're in a bad fight. They can't run. Horsemen will always be able to do that. It's what makes them the S tier unit of fuel-aged, in my eyes, and always has. Now, hold on a sec, Pigeon. You said knights are better than horsemen. Yes, but horsemen can chase down scouts. They have better mobility, which means that they can body block and they can gap close more effectively. I think horsemen are more effective at increasing a winning situation, right? It's why I said Sipahi with Fortitude could quickly become a broken ability when people get better at optimizing for early game, and if the build ever switches to be more Sipahi heavy than archery range heavy like it is right now. Because the logic behind Sipahi and Fortitude is if you are forcing someone to run away and you activate Fortitude, there's no loss, it's just more gains. It's a win more situation. That's what Horseman can allow you to do in the mid-age, in the feudal age. And this is what I'm talking about with the vision now. Of course, one of the big benefits for Marine Lord, he's playing as the Roos, so yeah, he's probably going to lose a scout here or there, but you have so many of them that you can kind of afford to lose one here. Especially if there's buying time elsewhere, which it most definitely is. As they're distracting here, we do see a move out by Marine Lord. Does set up the Wooden Fortress. A costly investment of 275 wood here, but worth it to secure the deer. And remember, on the other side, Avali has to come out of his base soon. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but they're burning through this bush pretty fast. These people like to eat in the bush a bit too much, and there are no bushes close by. He's going to have to move north side or far south side. Of course, south side does have the benefit of deer plus berries. One issue I do see for Avali is he's gone for horsemen. And the rough part for that is he doesn't have a unit that can defend this, right? Horsemen won't be able to defend against knights. He's going to need to go to spears, which is going to leave him kind of predictable. And then it's up to Marine Lord on whether he wants to add in knights plus archers or knights plus spears. Probably just knights plus archers, because if it was any other civ that you forced to go horseman spears, you could consider it yourself. But you're up against the Abbasids, so if you choose to mirror spears, they're going to be better. This Wooden Fortress is actually so annoying. If you look at the raid points now, they're next to non-existent. He's got one entry point, but Wooden Fortress again. This many horsemen are not going to cut it. It feels like you really need a blacksmiths to get that undermesh. If you don't have that +1 ranged armor, these Wooden Fortresses will pull you apart and tear you a new one. People asking, did BC win the game against B? I'm not sure on the most recent one. He had a 2-to-1 win rate. 66%. I mean, come on, guys. We'll check in on that win rate and see how he done in some of the other games after this. For now, let's focus on La Frenchman playing as Discount French here. It's kind of funny, actually. That is literally what Marine Lord is doing in this game right now. He's just playing Discount French. He isn't building any archers at all. It's simply just stable units. And the reason is that Avali hasn't changed his comp either. He's like, I'm not doing it first, all right? Instead, he's going to do something else first. It's High Trade House on the way. Culture Wing was clicked up. Mirrored timer by Avali. But, of course, a clear, definitive difference in when they're both going to achieve castle here. That's just going to escalate the knights. There's another beautiful thing about the Roos is if you get this 1-2 tap up and you are building knights in Feudal Age, you're going to upgrade a bulk of troops right in the field. Compare that to other civs like the English that have to get castle age for their knights. They can be economically strong when they arrive there and they're going to escalate nicely. But the initial time to build knights is very long. It takes 35 seconds per bad boy coming out here. And you can see in this tech up, he's going to have built another knight or two on the way. I really am not liking what Avali's doing there. This is tough. He's giving a lot of the map away. I understand the feeling of why you need to do this, but the tough part about it is because of the stone spawns, he didn't even go for a second TC. I wonder if the stone had been back near the gold if he'd actually tried for a second TC. But instead, he's playing one TC. He's condensed himself in a corner. He's very clearly going to have to go for farms at 10 minutes. Honest, at that point, you might as well just pull your power cord out, right? At that point, you might as well see stupid game, broken game, uninstall it, and install AoE 1, 2, or 3. Like, you just don't want to be playing this if this is what you have to do. Just look at the territory difference as well. I mean, Marine Lord, he has plenty of food to work with. He could try to wall up on the south side as well. Can't really easily access the central deer until he deals with the horsemen, but there's not many of them. And Avali has gone early into the camel archers, so he's trying to prep the appropriate counter. But once this is spotted, Marine Lord can make that pivot. Likely not into horse archers. I'd expect him just to go normie archers. And Avali, oh man, he's kind of taking the bait. He's nibbled at it. It was a Castle Age upgrade night for Marine Lord, but he's only built 3, another 2 on the line, on the way rather. Meanwhile, Avali is already prepping camel archers and camel riders. That's a pretty lofty investment. Get out of here, stupid bot. I don't have to buy my viewers. I just have to convince BC to raid me. Muppet. By the way, we didn't check the 245 gold is pretty lofty. So he's getting what? Probably 260, 270 passive gold. He's going to need more of that, and that's why he's moving to the gold line now. He's also pumping into the Warrior Monk, so we'll look to pick up the relics in the midfield. 35-second production time, so it won't take him too long to get there, but might take him a while to get out. Avali right now is doing a good job of getting the units he needs to have for mid-map control, but escalating the count is slow, remember. He's essentially building knights when it comes to camel archers and camel riders in terms of their production time. Looks like he is now playing for those relics himself, but Marine Lord will beat him to the punchline. Yoinks do us as he moves close to the base and walks away with the goodies. Ah, the confidence on this man. I can already hear him saying, oh ho ho. Even Sap Hunt Cam was in the other corners. He clearly did not get tier 3 though. Yeah, he didn't kill the Pumbas. Is that still on the table for him? Where's this? Wait, where's the second Pumba? I'm not being blind, right? It's just not there. Oh, no! So he didn't go farms. He actually tried to come out. Oh, that hits me right in the economy. He didn't get the outposts up. Marine Lord intercepted him perfectly. I'm sure you're going to lose 1 or 2 knights here, but real damage done. Avali still doesn't have food. It's pretty much out, right? Like, he's only got a few sheep left here. He idled his villagers running all the way out there and then all the way back. He took heavy damage on a few of them. Honestly, that sets his timing back. Look at his army. He's not producing any more units, and Marine Lord is about to take the military lead. Knights still being sniped in the meantime, but archers are being pumped out behind this, and those are going to be veteran archers, a good answer against both camel riders and camel archers, which makes up basically the whole army of Avali. Oh, man. He'll at least get these outposts up now, but this doesn't feel good, man. In an ideal world, Avali would invest 1 villager to each of these outposts and have the rest gathering berries already. But he's so paranoid that Marine Lord is going to come in with a second raid that he had to rush the outposts up. And remember, you only get an extra 25% build speed per extra villager. So he just heavily delayed his gatherings here. He's barely gathering anything at home. I mean, he's basically dry. Let's get raid around the back. Looks like he's going to catch the villagers, but walls are already up, so they'll make their way out. Now he's going to be cut off. Mistakes have been made. Avali. He needs to get out. This is actually a very painful army to lose. Like, look at the economy he's investing in this. 240 resources times 8. Oh my God. I think they're dead. Knights will spread out. Archers need to snipe down. Notice he'll prioritize the camel riders here. No ranged armor on them at all. No answer to the knights. That's going to be a loss of a heavy army there. Watch the army value just plummet. I mean, that's going to be a 3k plus army value lead in favor of Marine Lord. Avali, remember, he only just got food back online. He's only now picking up his second relic. He has no farm set up for long-term scalability. I'm not really sure what Avali does here. He could try to wall up to buy time. That might be his only option. But remember, he went 1 TC. He didn't build a second. He just got obliterated. The entire army is gone. All right. Marine Lord just kind of in cruise mode. You know, hit your face against the keyboard, always be producing knights and archers, and just head for the enemy base. Because it might sound like I'm oversimplifying this game now, but it really is that simple. He's done the hard work now. And he'll even stop one of the extra relics from coming home. Imam is going to be sniped out. Lancers are outmassed. Avali can't rebuild this army. I mean, this is bad news for him. Think about it. Avali, he went for premium units in terms of cost and production, and now he's trying to replace them with more premium units in terms of cost and production. Even more so than last time. This game is pretty much chalked. Yo, what's up, B? Appreciate the raid, bud. Hope the stream went well. We're just talking about your and Beastie's games. We'll probably go check out another one after this. Oh man, this is hard to watch though. Avali's just gonna get brutalized here. He hasn't even upgraded the outpost. He hasn't linked them in, so they aren't getting extra fire armor either. Oh, what? Marine Lord, stop aping around. What is he, baboon? I love this guy. He's like, well, I'm that far ahead. I'm gonna donate a warrior monk to you. You need him. 5 more villages down, another 5 to fall. Knight count way too high. I mean, this is just chalked. Sacred Site was also capped. Second army waiting there in the center. Avali, sure he's up to 8 Lancers, but honestly, I think you still just die. Kind of surprised he hasn't called it. He maybe feels like he's got 1 Ura. He doesn't necessarily know what's behind this. He doesn't know maybe it's a high trade house. Maybe he thought it's a warrior monks, and he gets a way back in like that. But even if he somehow takes a good fight here, he's not getting out of his base, right? This is always going one way. And even with the level 2 ranged armor, it just feels irrelevant. Just great plays by Marine Lord. Like, looking back at this game, I think the tough part for Avali is that Stone Spawn was a bit brutal. He didn't necessarily have an option to go second TC, but he also didn't play towards it. He played away from it, towards the gold instead. He very much intended to go for this resource-heavy lineup of Camels at the core of it, and that moment he got caught in the enemy base, that moment that Marine Lord got those walls up and cut off his escape was the critical ingredient here. That was a brilliant play by Marine Lord, the patience shown there to leave that opening in the center. Essentially baited Avali into a point where he couldn't retreat from. And when you're stuck behind enemy lines like that with like 6 melee units and half of it being ranged, there's no way out. Just great read on that situation coming out from Marine Lord. And Avali says, I wanted to try Camel Rise that game. What a dog unit. Yeah, not gonna lie, dog. I think you got heavily baited there. I think I said in the cast that there was like 4 knights and you started building Camel Riders. I'm like, this feels too early. This feels like you've been heavily baited. Marine Lord literally waited until he saw that unit to start building archers. And man, honestly, maybe there's a way you can kind of skirt the mid map if you don't get trapped in his base near that monastery on the south side. But the moment that happened, that game was over. You feel the Knight is just better than Camel Rider in almost any situation? Yes. Camel Riders require heavy scale. Camel Riders only really become good when you get the movement speed buff. And you have like 20 of them. It's like a slower to build horseman, right? I think that's the way to think of it. In terms of like obviously it does more than horseman, but you get my point. Like what does a horseman bring you extra? It brings you that body block where you can trap units, sort of thing. I think that's where Camel Riders are good, but you have to get that scale. Honestly, going mass camels early on just doesn't work, in my opinion. Like the build speed is way too slow for the resource investment. And then the bang for buck just feels crap. Because, you know, compare it to like a knight. Knight's going to have similar health, but it's going to have a lot more armor, which means its effective HP is higher. Just tough one.